Beijing now threatening retaliation against any country that sides with the U.S. in a trade war, warning the world could slide back into the law of the jungle. Markets selling off once again on trade worries. The Dow is down, S&P down almost 3%, and NASDAQ down over 3%. Still, the White House wheeling and dealing. South Korea's top trade negotiator lands in D.C. this week. Norway's prime minister meets with President Trump on Thursday, and a deal with Japan could be imminent.
It looks like we're north of 15 now of legitimate, serious offers on the table. If you start seeing schedules, world leader visits, my guess is it's a good sign, really, really good sign that we're close to the finish.
Okay, so we're talking some finish lines here, Charles. Or Kevin Hassett is anyway.
Yeah, at least Kevin Hassett.
What do you think about that?
I think the timing is pretty good. Over the weekend, Apollo put out this pretty intriguing work that showed that historically the average trade deal takes 18 months to put together and another 45 months to implement. Wow. So 90 days against that would be amazing, absolutely amazing. Now we know, of course, that's part of it would have been, I think this is one of the reasons the administration came so hard to begin with, right? A lot of that's the back and forth. We meet, you meet, let's meet there, let's meet here. Cutting all of that out, creating a greater sense of urgency, and maybe on our end also being able to do things like regulatory reform and things like that to expedite those things. But it does give you it does really put into perspective just how big of an undertaking this is. And it's the sooner we get a big deal like a Japan, for instance, I think the better it will be. And because you don't necessarily need a whole lot immediately per se, as long as you get a big one that sets the precedents, right? That becomes a template for all of the rest, so to speak. And Japan being wooed a little bit by China, of course, they have a really adversarial relationship otherwise. And even their top diplomat saying, hey, listen, we're not going to bow to everything America wants, which acknowledges we will bow to something that America wants. Right. And so if we can get someone in that region of the world, particularly the second largest economy in that region of the world, it would be huge, and it would really be a big sigh of relief, I think.
So, Taylor, you look at markets. You got Kevin Hassett saying, man, I think we're getting really close to the finish line. You got Japan pushing back a little bit, but I think what they're saying is we're going to give a lot as well. But the markets don't seem to want any more happy talk about finish lines being near. Is that what's going on?
Yeah, Charles brought up an interesting point. I was sort of debating this over the weekend. That's what we do on our Saturday nights when you're having fun.
Wow, rip-roaring Saturday, debating tariffs.
Do we want the White House, let's say, for example, and I'm making this up, 10 people have lined up and they're negotiating trade deals. Do you want the White House to wait and then just a month from now or 2 months from now come out and say, these are the 10 that we have? Or do you want the dribble? One done, here's another, here's a third, here's a fourth. And I think the market actually, and Charles may disagree with me, may actually want to wait and just get the biggie. Let's get like the
wait for another
10 out there.
2 weeks of today's type sessions?
No. Yeah, no, I mean, and I hear you. But like, if I get one dribble and it's a tiny guy.
Oh, it can't be a tiny guy. We can't get New Guinea, right? I mean, like we got to start a little big, right?
Well, and I'm wondering, my worry is the market's waiting on the biggie from China. And that's going to take longer. So the market, I think, needs to get through a few biggies, but give me like the top 10 and let's go. But I think, I wonder if at the end of the day, we need China eventually, because China, there was reports today, they've returned, I believe, 2 Boeing 737 MAX jets. That's the top seller for Boeing. And reportedly, the government has told their airlines stop accepting delivery after the big tariffs. So again, not that would force anyone's hand. That's 2 Boeing jets. No one cares in the scheme of the world. But again, if China's the biggie, do we need to start to get closer to some of those?
All right, so Jackie, we're talking biggies. We're talking dribbles.
I couldn't help piping in on the dribble. I want a dribble. I want something.
You want a dribble?
Something.
That starts now, though. You want a quick dribble.
To Charles's point, I don't want it to be New Guinea. I want it to be Japan. I want it to be the EU. I want it to be something substantial. And then those smaller ones can come out later. But if you make me wait, Taylor, for 10 countries to put a deal together on the table or this market, I think you're going to have a little bit more pain on your hands, and nobody wants that. So I think the administration is sensitive to thinking about it that way. They might wait for the big one, not China, but whatever is second best to them to kind of give the market before they come out with a smaller one. When I was thinking about this and I was thinking about how China retaliated.
On your Saturday night?
On my Saturday night. They're doing things like you're mentioning Boeing. They're going to rely more on Airbus. They're not rolling over. But China's got a lot of problems. It's not that easy for China. And they've got a difficult situation on their hands. Consider their demographics. They've got this aging population, not enough young people. The young people are going to be supporting the old people by 2030. We're talking about in 5 years from now. That was because they instituted the one-child policy, which when I was there was in place. And it just was really wild when you thought about it. They've still got local government debt. They've got a real estate problem still. None of these problems fix themselves over the course of COVID. They are dependent on exports. That's their economy. And so they can try to box out the U.S., but if the other countries don't play ball, they're going to have a hard time.
You can't replace the U.S. market.
Right. And then even with technology, we're nipping at their heels. I don't feel like they own that. And they have geopolitical tensions, too, with their neighbors, right? And so who are their biggest friends? Russia and Iran? Doesn't put you in a great position.
Dagan.
I worry about the auto tariffs that have already gone into place, and particularly President Trump has floated the idea of a temporary reprieve for auto parts, but there's still so much uncertainty, and this is not part of the country-to-country negotiations. This is a giant of an industry, and in the United States, not just U.S. auto manufacturers, but some of our greatest industry and manufacturing in the United States is from foreign automakers, and they too will be hurt by these 25% tariffs. The import tariff has already been put into place. That was at the beginning of April. The auto part tariff goes into place in early May, and this is just anecdotal, but talking to my 88-year-old father on the phone, he said, yeah, see, Volvo is laying off people in Dublin, Virginia. And I said, what are you talking about? And he said, yeah, there's a facility in Dublin, Virginia, and there's one in Maryland. They're starting to lay people off. And also, it also involves a Mack truck site outside of Allentown, Pennsylvania. Now, you can say this is only 800 workers at 3 facilities over the next several months because of the tariff issue, but this is a lot more to come. And I think that particularly with the 25% tariff on imports, that you will see whole showrooms shut down across the United States in a matter of months once supply is gone. And that's one of the reasons that the market keeps selling off, because it's not just one trade deal. Because and a lot of people I talk to do not see a trade deal happening with China. And they're beginning to factor that in.
China, to me, seems like a huge nut to crack.
Right.
I really do. If that's the good news the market's looking for, I think it's going to be a very bumpy ride.
And I wanted to get back to how we started this off with the hardball that China's playing. This is not necessarily new, right? Wolf warrior diplomacy started on Xi Jinping, right? And it's the confrontational form of public diplomacy, and it's something that he's emphasized, and it's really been drastic in the past, and this is part and parcel of that. You know, the whole Belt and Road thing was almost like one of these fairy tales, like to bring these countries in, right? Give them these loans, which of course end up being crazy, right? They own the ports in Sri Lanka. They technically own a few countries, smaller little island countries, if they wanted to cash in on them. And then when that wasn't working, they really stepped up this wolf warrior diplomacy. So they've been playing really hardball with their neighbors for a long time, and so that part is not a surprise. It might actually speak to a certain desperation on their part, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you know, when the Belt and Road Initiative was a long-term play by then, and I think it was done for moments like this, when they probably anticipated at some point the U.S. was going to say, we want to build a ring around China. And China knew what they were doing. The roads, the bridges, the investments were the chip. That's what you play when the U.S. plays this hand now, and that's what they're doing.
No, Anto, how does China get rare earth dominance, right? I mean, they get access to these things in different countries, and then they bring it back to China and process it there. Yeah. They've created they've created on the manufacturing side something that's going to be really tough to dismantle or compete against.
Yeah.
I just want to note, though, that we were told we would get a notice on the semiconductor tariffs. Remember, don't call it an exemption, don't call it an exclusion. Well, on the smartphones and the technology imports coming in from on tariffs, not 20% the fentanyl tariff, but the reciprocal tariff in China and the 10% coming in from other countries. Well, that's still in place. And we were told it's going to be a week that we get the replacement tariff on semiconductors under national security. Didn't get that. Meanwhile, the small businesses, medium-sized businesses who depend on China imports, like for Christmas, they're getting screwed. And nobody talks about them, not enough.
We'll see if we get that news this week.